Well, thank you for the introduction, Kim. It's actually exactly what you said. I basically wanted to say, but yeah. So everybody, welcome to the session. Doris, again, just summarizing. I'm a security consulting analyst at Accenture. Accenture is a big IT consulting firm focusing supporting our clients, providing an end-to-end approach from defining a concept to actually implementing new technologies, etc. And my focus there is data security, protection, and privacy consulting. What does our team do? Basically, like I mentioned, an end-to-end approach, for example, defining a data security strategy for a client, how can we fit data protection, where do we fit the data protection officer in an organization? So we cover a lot of different topics. And so let's get to the study we're actually here for. Is data protection an obstacle to digitalization? Basically, we did a study. It was a joint study between Accenture and Bitkom to find use cases and actually look, is this hypothesis true? Because under data protection, people who have a lot of knowledge in the area, it's often more seen as also an enabler, but if you go to a single person, they see it more as an obstacle or something that hinders them. So I think it's a very diverse and also that diverse topic, which is very debatable. Let's just call it like that. And it's a topic which is relevant across industries and also practices. The scope of the study was Europe. However, we focused on Germany. So let's dive right in. Just to give you an overview of what we'll be talking about the next 10 to 15 minutes. We'll have a quick look at the objective and aim of the study. So what was the background, the motivation to do that? We'll have a quick look at an overview of the team, and I'll guide you through how, the way of working, the methods, and finally we'll get to the results. So what were our observations? What did we find out? And if we get to it, I can give you an overview of the industries we looked at and some sample use cases. So objectives and aim. Upfront, the study was conducted in German. We did not yet translate everything, so this slide is in German. However, it's a lot of text, so please don't even start reading it. So what was the background of the study? So basically, we see that there are a lot of national and international data protection regulations that present a major challenge for companies. And also there's a survey by Bitkom saying that the biggest problem for companies is the legal uncertainty. Also, the new requirements coming all the time, then lack of support by the supervisory authorities, and also inconsistent interpretation of the regulations by the European Union, by the different data protection authorities in Europe, but also Germany. So for this, this is alarming to hear, and in particular in the context of digitalization, and in this context we particularly focused on innovation. So innovative processes, innovative projects. which are failing due to so many data protection regulations. And this would also be interesting in the context that Germany is lagging behind in the international comparison when it comes to digitalization. The motivation is also because an innovative strength is super important for a country's economic growth. So it's the basic questions we have to ask us. And our aim is with the study so we can support all efforts to boost innovative strength and to just identify what are actually the obstacles due to data protection regulations like GDPR. So a team, we were, it was a joint study with Com and Accenture. I'm not gonna go into that, but so you have an overview who was working on it. Regarding the methods, so it was quite straightforward how you expect a study to be conducted. We did research, prepared, then we gathered market data, and then we evaluated that and assessed it, and finally put it into a report. We took primary data as well as secondary data. We prepared a standardized survey, which we used to conduct interviews with colleagues and with different people across Europe. We used also our internal Accenture network to do so. So we talked to colleagues internally who are on projects, but also to clients and also people from outside. And so on the right side bottom, you can see that we covered quite a few industries, education, health, mobility, production, so quite a few. But this was basically how this was conducted. And now we can get to the results. So of the study. So upfront, it was interesting since all the different industries and functions to understand data protection challenges and different views. And especially for Accenture, I think it's interesting for us that sometimes it happens a client can't go forward with a project or an approach because there are barriers. They don't know if it's GDPR compliant, for example. It's often an argument used to stop a project, for example, which is actually very concerning. So it was particularly interesting for us. And we found that there is not a single problem, but the complexity lies more in the multitude and density of the data protection rules and requirements, which the companies have to adhere to. And this legal uncertainty, how much is enough? And so we looked at how this was handled by the different business models, companies, enterprises, or smaller companies, and the industry specifics. I'll just have a slide here to give you some facts and figures, just get into it. So the top pain points in adopting cloud adoption is that companies see that as a top pain point in the cloud to adopt cloud. 32% actually see data protection legislation hindering that. Also very interesting, what we've looked into are the penalties, which were based on GDPR. They increased a lot. So they really increased drastically in the amount, how many fines were given, and also in the amount of the fine itself. So here we saw, for example, like the most, of course, the highest fine had to be paid by Amazon, but it was also interesting that, for example, the Spanish data protection authorities, they issued the highest amount of fines, interestingly, to telecommunication companies. Yeah, and I mentioned the study in the beginning of Bitkom, which was already conducted, and there also legal uncertainty is one of the biggest challenges for companies. So what were our key findings? So basically, we realized that data protection as such is not questioned. So this is it's a positive feeling and also opinion about it, and it's important. But it's still, companies still face obstacles and major challenges. And we saw, for example, that there is a need for innovative, user-friendly production and development processes to actually drive digitalization and innovation often does not match with formalistic data protection regulations where you have a lot of documentation, for example. So we had a use case where a project was delayed by months, and because it was just unclear if a particular data, like if the data could be stored in cloud, for example. So it was delayed in a really long time, and many businesses cannot afford that, for example. So a startup could never afford that, or an enterprise might can if there's a delay in some month, but yeah, if there are budget restraints, this could be a major obstacle. And also what we saw is that the lack of resources who actually know the data protection requirements. So there's also lack of resources and guidance from the authorities. What we also saw is that the requirements are often reworked. So companies cannot keep up with the changes happening, and often work with outdated processes and also information. So here you can put the hashtag Schrems 2. And another thing we saw is, what I also want to highlight is that companies lack the flexibility to choose a service partner, for example. If you want to use some service provider and you're not sure what to look at and if you can use it or not, or have to do more investigation, many companies have the obstacle of being able to choose the right service provider at this point. So basically, we see there are a lot of these synergies. So we said, like I mentioned, it's not this one problem, but more the complexity of it all, and that has a blocking-like effect on innovation and digitalization. Another example is outsourcing. So businesses focusing on outsourcing, or they have this legal uncertainty if this is GDPR compliant. Another thing we saw, which was actually interesting, is also the delimited features. For example, that the obstacle that you might, as a business, only be able to offer less features compared to, for example, American companies. An example are apps, for example, health apps or fitness apps. All you see is that companies outside of Europe are often more able to be more innovative here. Could be one of the reasons for sure. And yeah, where something has to be done. So it's not the regulations per se, but that is a barrier to digitalization innovation, but the whole. And the solution to that is of course difficult, but because we see there's legal uncertainty, also increasing high fines and technical and costs for technical and organizational measures. And the solution could be that, so what we see inside Accenture, for example, that coming up with new technologies and solutions and approaches to be GDPR compliant, for example, encryption technologies, or constructing a data protection organization concept. But we also saw that there are different perspectives on the question if data protection is an obstacle. So we talked to a lot of different people, and it was very interesting. Like the IT security manager said he realized that the industries are different. He said the protection sector is less regulated, and accordingly fewer are hesitant to use cloud solutions. This was in the context of comparing, for example, to production and banking or health and public services. So there are quite a few differences. And yeah, for example, the SME owner, he's like, he cost and time to implement is too high to sustain, which is interesting because cannot afford an extra data protection expert. Because I don't know, there's 3 people in the company, right? Or for example, the sales representative was, okay, too much regulation hurts competitiveness. Said, okay, if we delay a project by half a year, we cannot be competitive. So it was very interesting to see the different point of views. For example, also the AI engineer working at the automotive company was like, hey, GDPR is actually not a restriction. We just have to there's always a way to get around hurdles. So on the bottom, in the base, the necessity of data protection regulations is not questioned on the material side, but it needs more certainty and also affordable, practical solution concepts. Yeah, I'm actually looking at the time and I see it's 50. So I would just give you an overview of the industries we looked at. So yeah, in the context of the study, we were able to we look at the different industries. We looked at mobility, financial services, health, education, production and energy, and telecommunication. Yeah, so I actually would, yeah, Kim, maybe I would give the word to you. Were there any questions?
Yeah, first of all, thanks, Doris. We're really good on time, so we still have 10 minutes left. So I would quickly ask our audience if there are already any questions. If there are, feel free to either raise your hand in the Zoom chat or please just write your question in the chat. And then maybe if not, because Doris, you just showed the various industry examples, if you have a use case that was fascinating to you or that came with some surprising answers, also feel free to use the remaining minutes to dive into that. Because so far I can see there are no questions, so maybe I'll hand back to you. And if there are, again, to our audience, if you have any questions or any really follow-up comments or want to have a point discussed in more depth, feel free to either raise your hand or use our chat.
Then I think, okay, then I will just keep talking and maybe there's some question. Some questions will come up. Yeah, so Yeah, let's just look at the first industry, mobility. So that basically were automotive, the automotive industry, also the aviation industry, so airlines and public transportation. So what we saw there actually, what was very interesting is in the automotive industry, there's a lot happening, also using artificial intelligence. And this is something that really wants to be used, but on the one side, to really train an AI algorithm, you need a lot of data. And this is, many companies don't have the, let's say, the knowledge and expertise to find, or the resources to have to find the say GDPR compliant approach. And this is considered in this context, for example, as an obstacle. In concrete case, it was unfortunately, I only have it in German here, but I brought the use case. But in this case, it was a smaller company, and they were trying to enhance the driver assistances in a car. So basically, their approach was they were filming accidents with real people and really observing all of the facial expressions and everything that can be observed in a car, and with a camera. And in this camera, all the data had to be labeled. So what is happening on the picture, and actually to be really able to assess what is happening. And this labeling process was actually done in what was outsourced. They had labeling labs in India and China. However, they had to stop it because the data was not able to. They were not able to transfer the personal identifiable data to the countries. And let it be evaluated there and labeled there. So basically, they told us that the prices were more than doubled for that, and it was a big issue for them. So it was more from the price perspective and time perspective. In this case, they actually had the knowledge. So I think this was a very interesting case. So you really had to start again from you to build up a labeling lab in the EU. So this could be, it's a little questionable, I guess, because you think, okay, it's is data protection an obstacle? It's debatable. That's very interesting about it. Another actually interesting case we had was in the health industry. So related to apps. So think about health and fitness apps. And in particular, we looked at Google. I think it was Google Fit and Garmin, and I think it was Apple, the Apple fitness app. And on the one side, these are American companies, and it was very interesting how much data was transferred there. But on this side, and exchange between also the establishments, and it's all written down and very transparent. But and also these apps, they provide a lot of features. When you compare this, for example, to the Corona apps, which were developed, these are very limited in features, and maybe could be one reason also not used that much. So it's, I think it's a struggle we're looking. But we try to cover a lot of different topics. Education was very interesting, all of the different opinions from the data protection authorities regarding Office 355, if this was able to be used in schools. And this was also very interesting for digitalization in schools. If every data protection authority says something else. So it's again leading back to the topic legal uncertainty. Exactly. So yeah. These are some examples we were looking.
Yes, thanks a lot, Doris. I guess it's always interesting to see some real world examples, because it makes this just more tangible to see what are the issues in the various industries reflected, and also what are the insights you gained from your study. So, and I will start my video again so you can all see me. So again, Doris, thank you very much for sharing your insights. I'm sure you will be around if there are any follow-up questions about the project. So thank you very much. And I already see there